Turkish police have moved to clear protesters from Istanbul's Taksim Square. It came after the Prime Minister addressed thousands of supporters and warned the demonstrators in Istanbul would be evicted. Well, let's talk to Al Jazeera's Jamal El-Shail. He's live for us in Istanbul's Taksim Square now. Jamal, so the police, we understand, have moved in on the protesters. Just tell us what's happening there.
Indeed, Darren, it appears a very clinical operation by the police, who entered after they announced on the loudspeakers in Taksim Square calling on all women and children to leave the area. And within minutes, I'm just going to step away from the camera as I talk so you can see this square literally 15 minutes ago was packed with protesters, with tourists, with passers-by, and now it is only filled with the police, essentially heeding the call by the Prime Minister that this square must be emptied. After enforcing their control over Taksim, they then moved into the park. That was after they had fired some water cannons and lobbed a few tear gas grenades in and around the area. Columns of police officers then started moving towards and inside the park. It seems they are now trying to establish control over Gezi Park as well, and probably dismantle the tents that people have been camped in there for about 17 or 18 days now. However, the operation was very swift indeed, possibly over in about, or at least for Taksim Square that is, was over maybe in about a matter of minutes, 5 or 10 minutes, in terms of establishing their control there. Now it seems they're making announcements on the loudspeakers inside the park, calling on people also to leave there. So that is the latest from here, Darren.
Jamal, whilst we're talking to you now, we're just going to show our viewers the pictures from Taksim Square a few minutes ago when the police moved in. So this is earlier when the police moved in with water cannon to disperse those protesters. Jamal, you were saying that the operation was fairly clinical. I mean, did the protesters have any sort of idea that that this was going to happen?
Well, there was some sort of idea. Maybe I would say about 20 minutes warning, 30 minutes warning is how much we got. At least we were in and around the square, and then you suddenly saw the police officers putting their gas masks on, and then in the loudspeakers they called, said all visitors, all women, all children, please leave the vicinity of the square, which was a clear indication that an operation was imminent. And very swiftly it happened. There weren't any clashes, so to speak. There didn't seem to be anyone fighting back. There was chants. Now we're seeing more police coming from this side. It seems that some protesters are trying to maybe regain some sort of control from another entrance, because Darren, this square, just to give our viewers a geographical idea of where we are, it is a massive square and it has roughly 8 or 9, even more entrances. So it is very difficult for any security apparatus to enforce full control over it, considering how large it is and how many entrances and exits, not to mention that it is a #1 tourist attraction. So obviously there will always be passers-by, people who maybe don't have a stake in what's going on, and that's what's also making it more of a challenge for the security services. However, from what we've seen, it has been, like I say, a clinical operation. We never saw any fighting back. The police made their announcements for maybe 20-30 minutes and then moved in. We haven't seen any injuries or any of that sort, at least from where we've been standing, and that's how the situation's been.
Jamal, in fact, we're now back to live pictures on our TV screens now of what's happening in Taksim Square now. It looks like we're seeing some kind of tear gas floating across one part of the square. Can you see that from where you are?
If I look, there's some tear gas right below us on this side, and this was one of the entrances, like I said, where it seemed a group of young men were trying to regain entrance into the square. It's kind of subsiding. However, there is a strong police. I'm letting my cameraman zoom into it so you can see there's a dozen or so, or a few dozen police officers in riot gear there, maybe trying to head off. I can hear the chants from across across on the other side of that building from Istiklal Street, which is the main street for our viewers. For example, in the UK, it's Turkey's alternative to Oxford Street, or in some of the main streets in Manhattan. That's the kind of like main shopping street here, and it seems that's where most of the people ran to. There was, when we were walking down that street earlier today, a gathering of some of the socialist parties who had set up stalls there to get signatures, anti-government signatures there, so maybe that bolstered the numbers from that entrance. But very tense situation now. Thankfully for those here, there hasn't been any violence as we saw before, but that could very quickly change.
All right, Jamal El-Shail there in Istanbul. Jamal, thank you very much for the update from Taksim Square.